Life and business can be easy, but us silly humans love getting in our own way. My name is Nico Rapclis, and I've had a wild journey. From releasing traumas that I held on to for decades, to playing college athletics, working with multi-million-dollar brands, having a spiritual awakening, and now coaching incredible humans navigate their inner and outer world. The Just Grow podcast is my outlet to share and help others with life and business. After investing north of $100,000 into my personal and professional development, the Woo plus Do formula is what has served me best. A healthy combination of mindset, energetics, consciousness, spirituality, self-healing, and discovery, matched with a high-level strategy, principles, focus, optimization, and accountability to help you be, do, and have everything that has been placed in your heart. This podcast is for the impact-driven entrepreneur that is finally ready to start thriving internally and externally. Welcome to Just Grow. Yo, what's happening, my friends? Welcome to the Just Grow podcast. My name is Nico Rapclis. I'm the host of the Just Grow podcast. Excited to have you here for this particular episode. This is with Carissa Johnsen. She is a spiritual guide. She is a transformational speaker and just an incredible bright light in this world. And we just had an incredible conversation about life, about business, and how to really continue to stay in your energy while being very successful in your life and your career, which is not always the easiest thing to do, and how to find that balance between the woo and the do. We really went deep into that, and it'll really help you really understand how to operate yourself, staying true to yourself while also having a lot of success, and really what success means to you. So it was absolutely incredible conversation. Now, before we do jump in, just want to let you know, generally speaking, about our Just Grow podcast live events. We just had one a couple of days ago with Akshay Nanavati. He's going to be the first guy to traverse Antarctica coast to coast for 110 days by himself. We had an absolute amazing time. We had over 130 people in the room. It was over at Alta Biltmore, and just we all dressed up, got all fancy, and it was just an incredible experience. We also want to let you know about our new project that we've been working on. It's called Vision Espresso. You can go there and learn more about it on justgrowvisions.com. We haven't quite fully released it. We shared a little bit about it at the last event, but we're going to be releasing it in a big way here coming up soon. So if you want to go check more about all that information, head over to justgrowpodcast.com or justgrowvisions.com. But without further ado, let's jump in this interview with Carissa Johnsen. Welcome, Carissa Johnsen.
Oh, thanks for having me. Wow, your intro. I was like really impacted by that. Like just seeing the visuals of your journey and feeling the energetics of that. I'm really happy I got to taste that, to bring that and infuse it into the space, and just feeling really honored to be here and share this time with you. I resonate a lot with your journey, so it's going to be exciting to see what unfolds.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited to have you here. It's been some time coming. We had a great conversation a while back. Through an interesting, I'm just realizing, like, my friend Jake, he's just the ultimate connector. And it was funny because I thought he knew you and you guys had a relationship, but he was like, no, I just wanted to connect you guys. I thought you guys would connect well. So it's just, he does that often now. He connects me with like some pretty cool people. So he's just a really special friend in my life, and the fact that he connected us and we were able to jump on, have a cool conversation, and decided let's continue this conversation because there's a lot of alignment. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it just reminds me of the perfection and the divinity of life. So often we think we have to will our way into doing things. Like, I got to go find the podcast guests, and I got to go pitch the podcast. And it's like, oh, wow, a friend just kind of came in and orchestrated it. And not that that's always an experience that we have, but I think it just is a testament to how supported we are and how there is the woo and the do, right? We do amplify our energetics and put the intentions out there, and we also do apply. And sometimes there's these beautiful experiences and miracles that happen that really open up our perspective for how we can just hold the intention in prayer, and how life, through people, not even just through signs, but will orchestrate things in our favor. So I think it's a beautiful testament, and it just invigorates this joy within me to anchor back into that knowing today of all days, considering I've had like all these technological issues. I'm like, it's all good. It's all working out in our favor.
Exactly. Yeah, that's well put. That last thing that you said, it's all working out in our favor.
And even if we can't see it in the moment, like it really is. When we zoom out enough and we look back in retrospect, it all worked out exactly the way it was supposed to, even if we couldn't necessarily see it in the moment.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, there's so many different ways we could go with this conversation. One thing that stuck out to me, and it was really interesting because Jake, again, shout out Jake Trio. He's incredible. He said something to me a while back. He said, I think that the old paradigm of success is evolving. And it was interesting, something of that sorts. And then I saw you make a post about like when you were on the cover, I think was it Success Magazine? Is that what it was? And you were like burning it because you're like, this is the old paradigm. Like there's a new paradigm of success. And I might be like using different terminology, but I think that would be a good place for us to start of like what does success really mean? And especially in today's day and age when everything's evolving with technology, with social media, and how do we continue to stay aligned to who we are? Because I think it's easier than ever to lose ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I'd love to share a little story that will help anchor into this
Please.
concept because I do agree that the paradigm of success is shifting. And I think when people have that awareness, they can orient themselves to a new reality, not believing or letting go of the belief that I'm losing my mojo or my whole life is falling apart, and recognize there's a greater shift in consciousness that's happening collectively and individually. We're also feeling it and we're healing it, and then we're creating a whole new construct. Ultimately, that's what happens with these ideologies, is it happens on an individual level and then it becomes constructed on a collective level. And so just to offer context too, that was, I want to be really in integrity. My face was on the cover of the magazine, but it was a vision board. So my face was put taped on there. So it
Okay.
wasn't actually that. And I did put that in the comments, but it seems like a lot of people just thought, I'm like, that's okay, I guess. But I want to be in integrity. I wasn't actually on it, but that was a vision of mine. And that was, since I was young, I always had this vision of being on the cover of magazines, being a huge public figure and da 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 da. And those desires are still planted in my heart, but the why for having it and doing it and becoming it is so much different. There's not an attachment onto it. And so, for the last several years, I've been building an international spiritual coaching and mentoring practice. And the first, 18 months of my business, I built a $250,000 business cash really quickly.
Wow.
And so I really had a lot of success. I was on the cover of magazines, I was in articles, I was getting so many podcasts, I was getting on stages. I had more money than I could imagine. And then there reached a point in my success when I had everything that I really wanted in that moment. When it came to the penthouse, the Range Rover, the designer bags, I had a lot of the material things that I had. I had I had the story that that was success to me. And yet I was so unfulfilled. I felt number one that there I wasn't satiated. There was this like it was never enough. So no matter how many multiple five-figure months I had, no matter how many clients I helped reach $1 million, whatever it was, it just wasn't touching the deepest parts of me that I really wanted to access. And so, during that time period, it became really disorienting when you have a lot of the things that you wanted and you believed were success, and then ultimately you feel unfulfilled and you feel like something is missing. And during that time period, I thought, oh, I'm being ungrateful, or I thought, it's just the goalpost. It just constantly moves, and I realized that the success and the paradigm that I had created wasn't actually mine, and it was fundamentally only based in material things.
Mhm.
Or vanity metrics. How many followers do I have? And you know, it was a really disorienting moment when I looked at myself in the mirror and my health was crumbling. I didn't have any relationships really.
Wow.
So I was on the peak of this mountain that I had climbed. I was by myself. I was broken on the inside just because my hormones were out of balance. My adrenals were fatigued and everything. And yet I had everything on the outside. And so I was in this, I was in this dissonance. How could I have all of these things and still not be happy? And so I went on a deep sabbatical for 4 or 5 months. I stopped working with clients. I stopped watching programs because I have a really strong relationship with higher guidance. And I identify that as being God, my guides, angels, ancestors, etc. And I received a very clear message that you need to do this. And so at first I resisted a little bit, but then over time things started crumbling. And so I just decided to listen anyway. And then during that 5 month period, I healed a lot of my trauma similar to your story. And I got to the core essence of who Carissa is without the validation from clients, without the multiple 5 figure months, without the designer bags, without the penthouse, because I moved out of my penthouse. I really wanted to go deep into this quest.
Mm.
And the version of me that came through, is and was fundamentally different than that. And for the last couple of years, I've decided to rebuild my life, rebuild my identity, more anchored to who God, creator, source wants me to be, and who, I still get to have fun and create in the world, but I know who I am without those things. So who I am with those things doesn't change me. And I'm not better of a person because I have $1 million business, or I'm not better of a person because I live in this way. There's no hierarchy here. And so that crumbling moment gave me the ability to really help other people see and experience what this new success paradigm is, because it's not going to happen in the mental. It's not going to be just a shift in the way that we believe about things. It's going to happen on a deep energetic and spiritual level. And so I'll pause there for a moment, but I just want to validate what you're saying is really true. And I think that in order to really shift the consciousness in humanity, we have to ask ourselves, whose story is this? Whose narrative is this? Whose rule is this? Whose belief is this? And oftentimes it's not ours. It's an ancestor. It's a lineage thing. It's a trauma imprint where we develop a certain archetype or personality or survival strategy, or it's a narrative that's been, given to us from the media. And it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life to strip away everything that is not me. But then to be on the other side of that, I feel fundamentally incredibly liberated, that I feel in some ways unshakable. And for me, that success now has become more peace. Like when I'm at peace, that to me is success, and community and happiness and health and vitality. So, now as I've built up my business again, I take the money that I would have spent on trying to pretend that I am somewhat worthy and significant. I'm like, I want to go to cryo chambers. I want to build a pathway for longevity and detoxification in my body. I want to go vacations with my family. I want to do things that are more meaningful and memorable, that are not just based on trying to present an image of myself that is fundamentally not who I am at the core.
I could just sit here and listen to you all day. I mean, you explaining that, it just continues to reinforce why I knew that we were supposed to continue to have conversations. And there's so much in that I resonate with fully. There's a song, I'll have to send it to you. It's called Happy. And it's basically saying like, why are we idolizing all these people that are ultimately just lonely and depressed? And I definitely can relate to you to a certain degree, but you've had a lot more business success than I've had up to this point. And I've heard a lot of people say that like they've had the massive success, they built the $1 million business, and it was fun for a little bit, but it was just like you said, the goalpost was always moving, and it was just like it was never enough. And I just I don't, for whatever reason, I think God was really, I've kind of questioned it for me, is like, why have I not had the business success that I've really desired up until this point? I know it's coming, but it's always come back to me. I said, I think God's really prepping me, because I don't think I would have been ready for that success. It would have like reached a point where I like got, more and more and more and more. And I would have gotten to a point likely where you got, where like you weren't fulfilled, and like had that crash in a sense. Not necessarily those are the words that you use, but Yeah, and I feel the same as you. I now where I stand, and as things are shifting and evolving for me, and I feel like I'm in a really good place where I'm a lot more unshakable, where I know who I am. I'm grounded in myself, and that feels so good. And just what you said as well is the peace. This year, that was my word. I want to have more peace in my life, and I feel like that's success to me. Is like, yes, of course, you want to grow a business and do things that help people and fulfill them. Um, but I really do. I value peace. Like I don't like sacrificing that. So there was one other thing that I wanted to, I'm sure it will come to me. But here's one question while I'm thinking on that is, do you think that, obviously you had that rise and then you kind of had that realization and you weren't fulfilled and you weren't happy. Do you think that people have to go through some version of that to really understand it and experience it so that they can know it? Or can they actually learn from other people and just say, like, that's not actually what I want?
Mhm. I think it's a both and
Mm.
I often stand for that in a lot of my work,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
as you do too, right? So I think that I I believe that my path was perfect. I believe that on a deeper soul level that part of my process was to go through it. I don't think you need to go through that. You know, when I tune into what you're saying about your own process, I feel a lot of the truth of what you've anchored into in terms of you decided you want to build things more sustainably for yourself for the long term. And so your process was different. You know, for me, I decided to go in the crash course, build the business, let it crumble, learn the things. It's even part of my human design,
Mm,
right? So everybody has these energetic personality, astrological components that are their blueprint. I have a friend who was asking me the same question the other day, or not the same question, but we were having the same discussion because her business hasn't hit the level of success that she wants, yet she has thriving relationships. She's got so much vitality and radiance. You know, she's, you know, has these other areas of her life cultivated. So I think that we often believe that, you know, it is the success, like business, finances, we are such a materialistic society that we believe that one, if we don't have that, we're not successful. But I think we're looking more holistically at our lives right now where we are seeing relationship, intimacy as success. We are seeing peace as more success in all of these areas. And so what's interesting on a spiritual and energetic level also, so you know, I went through this process. I received what we would call like the code, right? The codes, the learnings, the lessons that I can anchor it into. But when somebody holds that frequency, they can transmit that to someone else. And so,
mm,
you know, when we think back to the shamanic and ancient ways of being, you know, grandfather, the shaman, he would sit around the fire and he would tell the children, the community, here's, you know, here's the stories of our ancestors. Here's what we went through. Here's what we've gone through. And you feel it on a
mm.
visceral cellular level. I'm even
Yes.
getting chills. Like
Yes.
so you learn through transmission, you learn through modeling, you learn through that way also. So, you know, luckily we don't all need to go through it, which is why mentorship works. You know, when you work with clients,
Mm,
you tell them about your lived experience and sometimes they get it. And then if they don't, they weren't meant to, and then they
yeah.
had to go through a different course of action. And, you know, I think that we're realizing that, you know, there's so many different ways to get the lesson. You know, sometimes it's in an easy way, sometimes it's in a really hard way. And all of it is divinely perfect for your specific blueprint, for your specific life path. And, you know, there's no greater way to cultivate your purpose other than following what is already laid out for you.
Yeah, that's such a great point. At the end of the day, that's what it always all comes back to. Like whatever your path is, that was what was you were meant to go through. And I think the path that I went through, the challenges that I went through, even sometimes when I had resistance in the moment, I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why is this? Why do I have to go through this? Why does life have to be hard like this? Why do I make things extreme and intense? But it's just like you look back and you connect the dots and you're like, that's the way it was supposed to be. And the more that I reflect on that and saying like, that was the way it was supposed to be, that was the way it's supposed to be, the more I can take that into the present moment, the more that I can take that into me continuing to move and navigate my life. And whatever happens, this is like, yeah, it's exactly the way it's supposed to be.
You have like, it's interesting because everybody has their own unique energetic signature. You could walk into a room and you could feel the flavors of everyone. Like this
Uh-huh.
person's got like this kind of aura and this kind of energy, right? The depths with which I had to go with my ego and finances was a huge thing for me. Like I attached so much of my worth to money. Now I can have so much compassion for the world and humanity that that amplifies the unique energetic signature transmission and overall contribution that I meant to offer the world. You know, a lot of us get tripped up in what's my purpose
Yeah.
when it's less of an outward thing that you're supposed to do and more of an energetic frequency that you hold in the greater web of consciousness for the collective. And of course, there's a manifestation of that. So you have a very specific frequency where people might come to you and have the same or similar path. We're like, why haven't I hit the success? Right.
Yeah.
And so you have a different energy that you can bring to them and helping them understand like the beautiful wheel of life that they're cultivating, how all of these other areas are helping them helping them cultivate something to prepare them for the success, because when it blossoms it's there and it's sustainable. You know, looking back, I know this is perfect, but I was like, you know, wow, it would have been what would it have been like if I cultivated all these other areas first and then I built the house on the foundation versus building the house and then there was, you know, there was cracks in the foundation having to tear it down. But again, you know, like I said, all of these things are perfect, but it comes down to, for me, it's always spiritual and energetic. There's a
Mhm.
frequency, everything's energy. It's a frequency that you hold that's very specific to your life purpose
Yeah.
that you could only hold and transmit through your unique process. And so I think that helps us all recognize like how not to compare ourselves to other journeys, you know, of like what other people are doing. Something else that came through, you know, for me the other day is we have no idea. We look at people's success and we're like, oh, they got the cars, the house, they got the health, they got everything.
Yeah.
We're like, we don't know what life they just came from.
Right.
We don't know what incarnation was right before this. We don't know what incarnation's after. This is the ceremony of life where we're eternal. So our soul is incarnating now, but we have no idea what became before and what will come after. So it's just like letting people be where they're at and celebrate them, letting ourselves be where we're at. And we're all here to advance our soul. We're all here for a very specific soul curriculum. And so you're in a math class, I'm in a gym class, and it's like, you know, there's no comparison here. So it's just beautiful to have these larger perspectives on life that help us really anchor into peace, knowing that we're exactly where we should be.
Hmm. That was beautiful. So some of the things that I hear you keep repeating is it's the spiritual stuff, it's the energetic stuff. So if they like hear that and they're like, okay, I hear you saying that, but like what is that, what does that mean? And how do I step into this world more? And how do I understand what you're talking about more? And how do I get more energetically aligned to who I want to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just so we're all on the same page, I'm a doer also. I'm a double Aries. I got a lot of fire. I got a lot of leadership and doing energy. And I don't think that you can have one without the other. It's the yin and the yang, the
Yeah.
feminine, the masculine. So, you
The
know,
woo and the do.
the woo and the do. Yeah, so it's so interesting. I'm not a quantum physicist to be able to describe energy on such a level where people who are typically doers or more mental would really be able to understand this. But everything is made of energy, right? All matter is simply a quantum entanglement of intentionality that has come to take shape and form. You know what I mean? And over time. And so when it comes down to the energetics of this, it's in the subtleties, and I think that that's a difficult thing for people to understand because it's not something you experience from the mind. We want to know, what do I do to feel
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
What do I do to, you know, where, you know, so you know, my pathway to this was and is one of slowing down so that I could feel. One of the, I forget who said this quote, but it's one of my favorites. And I reference it often, so I should probably give the woman credit, but it's the longest journey is from the head to the heart. And I think that that one lands right. Like the longest journey is truly from the head to the heart. And so that question is coming from the mental, right? Like what is energy, and you want to understand it, but that's okay. When it comes to these more deeply spiritual, which really means spirituality is the experience of the unseen worlds. So it's not something you're going to see, and it's not even necessarily something you're going to fully understand.
Yeah.
That's the mystery, that's the divinity of all of life that will never fully understand it. Consciousness can't really understand certain aspects of consciousness unless it's like mirrored back to itself. That's why when we have friends, we can learn so much because you're mirroring something back to me. So you have to be able to witness itself. So when it comes to the energetics of these, the journey from the head to the heart is really from solely focusing on certain aspects of our brain, right? So like left brain, right brain, into understanding the felt and the lived experience that comes from the body and the heart. And we've been taught we've been rewarded for how logical we are, how mental we are, how rational we are. And so cultivating these other aspects of our being are one of they are one of unlearning versus learning. So
Mm.
there's more that comes from sitting in silence and contemplation than simply just reading about these concepts in a book. And so, a lot of this pertains to the way that you experience information from the body, right? So when clients come to me and they ask me these questions like, what about the energy? How do I feel it? And it's really in the moments where you take a breath, you slow down, and you even just imagine that your awareness is here. So like there's a bubble of light here, and imagine and bring the bubble of light into the body. And so you kind of just like bring it in your awareness, almost as if you're focusing on like the internal. So if there's like a blue dot or a silver pearl or something going inside of you, and you bring your awareness in, there's such a different lived experience and reality that's in your body, right? So it's like, noticing in this moment, what am I feeling? And it's not even just emotion. For me, my hands are sweaty, I'm moving a lot of energy. I'm noticing that I'm feeling some pressure in my right shoulder. I'm noticing I'm feeling a lot of spaciousness in front of me. So as you tune in, there's so many more channels for our senses and for us to experience reality in this space. So the textures and the qualities. So
Mm.
not just when you close your eyes, what's the emotion, although that's helpful. What are the other textures? Is there sharpness here? Like there's a whole, like Aladdin, there's like a whole new world inside of us. So energy, everything is made of energy. The way that we engage with other people, we're going to experience this person I don't feel good around, or this decision I'm noticing I feel contracted around. But so the greatest way to start to tap into these subtle aspects of reality and of ourselves is to be able to slow down and not be so distracted in technology and doing, so that you can actually feel it, experience it, identify it. And then once you practice more and more, you understand what alignment feels like. Because I could tell you, get into alignment, and you're like, what is that?
Yeah.
But alignment feels like for me, it feels like my heart is open when I make the decision. I can feel like a
Mm.
relief. I feel a sense of confidence. I feel like a pillar in my channel where I'm like, ooh, yeah, that just lands. I noticed that there's like an excitability in my solar plexus, in my abdomen. There's like a ooh, like a
Yeah.
joy, So alignment's going to feel different for everyone. So getting into alignment is a very specific pathway for you, but you're only going to be able to know if you know thyself. If you know your parts, if you know your triggers, if you know your body, if you know these sensations that are constantly signaling everything to you. And so I think one of the most important things that is going to be a skill set for the entire humanity moving forward is going to be connecting with their intuition. How do I receive information? How do I understand this information? How do I take action on this information? Because there's multiple different levels with which we experience intuition, right? There's our survival instinct, like, don't do that, right? There's the intuition of the heart of like, ooh, this is align these decisions. And then there's the intuition of the universe, how like life is speaking to us, how we see an eagle when we're asking for a sign for something. And if you look up the spiritual totem of an eagle, it means something specific. So the world is constantly engaging with us in these subtleties, but we've been programmed not to see it. So the energetics is more or less an unlearning, and it comes from healing trauma, it comes from slowing down, and it comes from practice just over time,
Yes.
tuning into when you're making decisions, how you're feeling, and then tracking that and making notes. Okay, I feel like this. How did this decision turn out? And then reverse engineering. Okay, that was aligned. What did that feel like for me? So the, it's not a one stop, here's the answer.
Yeah.
It's a journey that is constantly unfolding for us for a lifetime.
Mm, that was so good. It's interesting. It's so many things are popping up that I want to just chime in right away, but I wanted to hear you finish. And so I would say kind of, I think it was about the time that you and I got connected. I think was that like December time, summer, maybe around
Yeah,
there?
I think so. Something, yeah, a few months ago.
And I started getting much more into this world of energetics because I realized I've had an interesting journey because I'm here in Scottsdale and I have a lot of friends that are very successful business owners. They're more on the masculine side and they're very structured, very like, here's what you got to do, 3 steps, you got to have one avatar, one pain point, like that kind of stuff. And you can't knock them, obviously. Like they're building multi-million-dollar operations, and it's really impressive what they do. But I just realized, like, I kind of started taking audit of who was I listening to, who was the mentorship that I was listening to, and not that their stuff isn't great because it is, but I realized at the same time is like my offer is a little bit more on the spiritual side. So I was like, why am I not like taking counsel from more spiritual mentors? And so that's kind of when I went on this adventure and this hunt to find some new mentorship, especially in the like more of the spiritual side, the woo-woo side, the energetic side. And it was interesting because I started coming across people like you. I came across people like Lorna Love, Andrea Crowder. I've had a couple of those gals on the podcast and got to learn from them and invested in some of their programs and courses. And it's it's such a funny journey because I got in their world and it's like it's all women and me. I'm like, it's just me on the master class, the only man. But um, where I was going with that is that once I started understanding energetics on a much deeper level, as I started getting involved in this work, I would I would be so excited about it. And I am still so excited about it. And my friends would be like, that's awesome. Like, tell me about it. And then I would be like, well, it's kind of hard to explain. And then I would do my best and they would kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? But like it is annoying. It's like once you really start understanding and you get involved in this world and you start just like internalizing it, it really is hard to explain with words and in the mind. But the more that you just understand it, the more you realize it, the more powerful it is, and the more you're just tapped in. And then, and it's been this way for a while, but like people are constantly asking me, I think especially at the events, it's most paramount is people like, how are you? Like, how do you do what you do? Ask them like the do question again. They want to understand just like that quick answer because they see something in me. They feel something in me, whether they realize it or not. They're like, this guy has something that's like I want, essentially. And so you're right. It's like it is the reps and it's the constant, I do a lot of I spend a lot of time by myself. I go to Sedona a fair bit. I make it my goal to do that about once a month. I usually do pretty good at that. And just sitting in silence a lot and having a lot of alone time journaling and just like getting to know myself because that was one thing I heard from you is that really you gotta really get to know yourself, understand yourself. And one thing that I heard a while back that really just resonated is like, how do you get to know anybody? Like one of the ways is you spend time with them. It's not like you're hanging out, you guys are both on your phones and just sitting next to each other. That's not spending time with each other. It's sitting down, it's having conversation, it's communicating from my experience and my perspective, that's the same way you get to know yourself. And until you know yourself, it's going to be hard to like really get energetically aligned because you're always falling into someone else's narrative. And what I was sharing with you before, like our messaging is kind of started to tailor towards helping people become magnetic entrepreneurs, specifically busy entrepreneurs, because like a lot of the busy entrepreneurs are kind of in this chaos area and they want to become more magnetic. But here's the thing is that magnets, as I was telling you, is like they repel things that are not for them, but they pull in things that are for them. But the basis of that is that you have to know what is for you. And in order for know what is for you, you have to know who you are. And so like the basis of becoming magnetic is knowing yourself. And the only way to know yourself is to get energetically aligned and do all the practices that get you there.
Mhm. Yeah, something I'm really feeling this is so important too is I want to circle back for a moment because I think it'll kind of launch us forward into this topic is when we talk about a new paradigm of success, of wealth, of whatever, if we keep if we keep applying the models that are already constructed, we're not going to advance as a society. We're not going to evolve. So you, I would consider as somebody as a trailblazer.
Mm.
And the thing that is about trailblazers is they go first. They go into the forest. They blaze the trail ahead and they're like, okay, come with me after you've gone through it. But sometimes you look at other people and you're like, but this person's already gone through this thing. Maybe I should just follow them. But that's, not your path. And when it comes to business, I experience this so much within myself and clients. There's a lot of, but this model works. And it's like, yeah, and we're outgrowing it and we're evolving just like anything else. And we're advancing on very rapid levels right now. And there's certain people who are meant to go first, right? And so those things are going to start to crumble a little bit more. And that's not to say that entrepreneurs, we're resilient, we'll adapt, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. And so you staying true to yourself and you really helping people become magnetic, this is the new way and it just hasn't fully been constructed yet. So you're like an early adopter. You're a person who's really paving the way for other people to go first. And, you know, we have often looked simply towards mentorship or books or other people to tell us the thing, tell me what to do, show me the way. And we've outsourced a lot of our power to things outside of ourselves. And so knowing yourself is arguably the most important thing you could do. And that is the basis for how you learn to trust yourself and how you learn to understand what your specific path is. And I love this process of talking about magnets because we are magnets. We have a huge magnetic field. And a lot of people don't realize that our largest magnetic field is actually in our heart. So if you haven't studied the Heart Math Institute, they've done so much work on seeing and studying scientifically that, because I'm going to emphasize that because it's
Yeah.
not woo, right? It's
Yeah,
science.
exactly.
Dr. Joe Dispenza, this is the foundation of a lot of his work, coming into coherence. The energy that you cultivate, it creates a vortex and it literally magnetizes things to you. So you don't have to work as hard. You don't have to follow somebody else's blueprint because that's not for your specific life, right? And so, understanding where the magnetism comes from is knowing thyself. And then just taking it a little bit further for us in this conversation too, it's so much of it comes from our heart, and our heart is the channel between worlds, this reality and whatever else you believe, the veil, the spirit, the other side, the soul. Even if you have no basic understanding of what's on the other side of this reality, just you have a soul, right? And it's guiding you. And that's where you communicate. And so the heart has um its own nervous system. It picks up on information before even your mental field. I don't know if you've heard that study about, have you heard the study at the Heart Math Institute with the screens?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm going to
Maybe
tell
you
you, this
remind
is,
me. I want to
okay,
hear.
I'll tell you. So it's so good because it just anchors in this thought too. So basically they took a variety of people and they brought them into like a facility. And the premise of the study was that they were going to show people different pictures of different people expressing a variety of different emotions. So they would put up a screen and it would be an angry person. They put up another screen and it would be a sad person. And then they were monitoring the person's response to the image. What they found was astounding. What they found was that the body was responding to the image that was about to come up before it even was shown.
Wow.
So we could make a variety of different conclusions about that, but our bodies, our hearts, they pick up on information before it's even in this reality. And so your heart is picking up on information, and it's really guiding you on a soul level. And so this is such great research that the sages and the mystics of ancient times have shared with us for time and time again. And so for me, the magnetism is all it's in knowing yourself, it's in trusting yourself, and also it's in the heart. It's in listening to that quiet little voice that's like, do this thing, listen to this, slow down, you're okay, child. Like all of the voice that we kind of shut out, we're like, no, whatever. We like become rebellious with ourselves, but it does. And truthfully, like you were saying too, there's such precision with the magnet that is makes up our magnetical field, that is our aura, that is our bot, that is all of our energy bodies. It is so sophisticated. It picks up, energy never lies. So when somebody's coming into your field, just like I've had this happen to me all the time, I'll think about a friend and they'll call me. I'm like, I knew that they were going to call me before they did. So we're pulling in information, we're pushing out information. But if you don't know yourself, if you don't know what this feels like and you don't trust it, you can feel the energy all day, but you might not push it away. You might not pull it in, right? So it has to come back to you spending time with yourself like any other relationship that allows you to work with the magnetism, because the magnet's already happening, but you have to be able to understand it and work with it. And there is such a sophistication and precision with anything. And as you trust that thing that's like, oh, do this, pull this thing in, this intention is here, pull that thing out, whatever it is, that's how you come into alignment when you're so devoted to your highest timeline and to alignment, and you see how you can just like trust these decisions and everything that are coming in easily. And it's like, oh, it's just kind of happening. It doesn't require much other than just trusting the energetics of everything behind it.
Dropping gold bombs on us. Wow. One thing right away is, yes, I love how you say scientific, because that's really what pulled me into, like, that was like the beginning stages. Like I was really starting to lean in, and this was like even a couple of years ago when I started getting into Dispenza's work. And it's like he took this concept that used to be like just woo, and everyone was just like, what the heck is this? And he backed it by science. And it's like how do you disagree with this now if you really take the time to understand the science? So that's what really opened up the door for me. And it's like it's irrefutable from my perspective.
Oh, totally. People are regrowing their thyroid glands and organs in their body at Joe Dispenza's at workshops. They're learning how to walk again. I mean, we can no longer deny this anymore. So it's like what's happening on a deep, energetic, quantum level of consciousness working with the field is absolutely undeniable. So and I love that it's measured now, because there's a lot of people who want to understand, they want to walk in this way, they want to be spiritual, but they have such a hard time. And so now it's giving them the evidence that it's like you said, it's like irrefutable. You're like, you cannot deny that this person was paralyzed before this event and now is walking again.
Yeah.
Or they were calling in a partner, they showed up for the meditations and held it in the field, and then it became it. That's what it is. Like quantum entanglement is like bringing all this matter and the merging together. So it's so exciting the time that we're in, because we really are merging in the science and the spirituality. And I think that that's what's helping people navigate the awakening process and construct these new paradigms in reality, is because there's science to back it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And one other thing you said too, I thought this was a really important thing to highlight, is you're talking about the Heart Map Institute, and they would recognize those emotions before they even showed them. And what that made me think about is that your energy enters the room before you do.
Totally.
And so people feel you before you even entered into the room. And the other thing you said is like energy doesn't lie. I think energy is like the truest thing out there. And that's why we, even people that are not as tapped in, and, previous versions of myself, when I would just, something would be like, this feels a little off. And it was like me actually feeling that energy without being as tapped in. So we all are, aware of the energy, even if we're not. We don't know how to explain it, but I feel like the more tapped in we get, we're just like more aware of that. And one other thing I wanted to share with you, this was pretty insightful, something that I heard recently talking about intuition, is that intuition just shows itself quickly. It's not like, hey, this is the decision. Hey, you should do this. You should do that. It's like one time, show you there, and then it's your responsibility to be like, okay, I saw that. I'm gonna make the decision.
Mhm. It reminds me of when we were in like school and it was like you had to fill out those scantrons. I don't know how old you are if I'm dating myself a little bit, where they have like the circles that you fill in on like the old school testing. And the
Oh
teachers would
yeah,
always
yeah.
say, go with your first choice because it's your
Oh,
intuition. It is. It's
mm.
always right there available to you, ready to be accessed. And yet we don't often listen to it. So I think that's, that's the truth right there.
Well, let me ask you this, and then we'll start wrapping up here in a little bit. Um, with intuition, like how do you get better at recognizing it and even taking action on it? Because I think sometimes this has been a question that's popped up in my awareness is like, what's the difference between intuition and insecurity?
This is such a deep curiosity I've had for so many years. And I say, what's truth versus what's trauma?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I started dating someone and I was like, nope, nope. And my intuition says nope. And then looking back years later, I was like, oh, that was my trauma blocking me.
Mhm. Yes.
So, there's no one answer for this, which I know people really want, but I would say that it does truly come back to knowing yourself. Like if you
Mm.
don't know that you had trauma when you were a child, and I'll kind of out myself here. So there's been some experiences in my life where I've had experiences with men that I've felt were violating or um like really traumatic for me, that I built up a lens where I can't trust men. They're not safe. But if I didn't spend the time healing, I would have lived with that forever. And I would have been like, oh, my intuition is telling me I should be single right now, right?
Mm.
But because I'm so devoted to healing and clearing all this karma and trauma in my body, I was able to discern, okay, there's a protector here, right? There's a modality called IFS, internal family systems, that has been so instrumental to me understanding the difference between my trauma versus truth. So some of this is not like an at-home practice, although it can be, and I'll give an example of that in a minute. Some of this, because our generation and the generations that are here alive right now, there is so much trauma that we've been carrying from our ancestors on a cellular level. Like this is epigenetics. This isn't like, oh, you got passed down this thing. It's like they can tell in the cells how this is getting passed down to people. I mean, they've even done more studies where they've separated a cell from a person's body and like miles away, and they've done something to the cell that was in front of the person, and the cell that was miles away responded to the thing that it was. So we can't deny that this is all happening, right? So some of this requires just the devotion to knowing yourself. If nothing else, I hope people take that away, because that's at the foundation of everything. Your business success, your relationships, your money, everything. And then, some of it requires deeper healing work. I had to understand what happened in my life that built up different protective mechanisms, different strategies. And then I can know them. And then because I know those parts of me, it's like knowing an aspect of me. I have a part of me that feels really, I'll try to access a real part of me. I have a part of me that gets really rigid around my space. So I have a housemate right now. She just, came in before we had our call. And so if I wasn't aware that in my past I had a lot of trauma around my childhood, I tried to control my environment so I felt safety. I would think, oh, she's not a good roommate. I project everything onto her.
Mhm.
Right. So this is deep healing work. This isn't like sit and meditate and you can understand the truth versus trauma. This is deep healing work that's taken me so many years. So I'll put that there. Like it requires devotion, it requires practice, it requires a lot, of you. And then the other part, just so people have something that they can practice, is I like to use my body as a lie detector test, right?
Mhm.
So you want to have a cool exercise. So sit down and get into a deep meditative state, take a deep breath, close your eyes and ask yourself, is my name Carissa? And then you're going to see, of course, you're going to say no, and you're going to feel what that no feels like. You're going to go, oh, okay, no. So for me, I'm just going to track my system, right? You're going to say, oh, my name's Carissa. Okay, that's it. That's a yes. So, okay, what does that yes feel like? And then it's like, okay, and I'll start identifying how my body feels. And then I'll say, I'll give myself a variety of things. Like I trust, I'll just give the example that I trust men. Okay. And so, or I trust this person, maybe be more refined with it. I trust this person. And it's like, oh, okay, there's a different quality here. There's a different texture. I actually notice my stomach is starting to get tighter. What does that mean? Right. So use your body as a lie detector test and list out a variety of questions that you know the truth to that are undeniable. Your name, your birthday, where you live, your parents, and then things that you're 100% also not, or you're 100% sure of too, that are like, I don't like this kind of ice cream, right? Okay, what is that like? And
Mhm.
then where's the space in between where you're still sitting with like, I don't know if this is truth or trauma. Then you kind of got to peel back the layers a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So those that's a really deep practice. But if you want to become a master, start doing those things. And I'll give one more exercise too
Yeah, please.
for people. The real simple version that I always start with too is, when I was first learning my intuition, I would just ask my body very simply, what is a yes? And show me a yes. And it'll give you one, like a thing. So it'll be like you'll sway forward or you'll sway backward.
Yes.
Or sometimes you go to the side or the other side, or sometimes there's something that happens to your body manifested externally that you'll notice too when you ask it. Like your body's listening to you. It's like you're speaking to the
Mm,
cells, right?
yeah.
All the
Wow.
organisms that are actually alive. Okay, show me a no. And I know I'm like, oh, my body goes backwards,
Mhm.
right? So start using yes, no first, and then go to the lie detector test, and then go to the more advanced practices. I kind of gave them in reverse order just
Yeah.
to show, I guess. But and I do this at the grocery store. So I'll grab something like I have some castor oil here. Immediately when I grab it, my body's like, oh yeah, like I need this, right? And then I'll pick up something else and I'll notice, oh, okay, my body does not want this. So yes or no gives you the frame to start asking. And then when you're in front of someone, you can identify like, is this person at my highest and best to connect with? And you might be like, oh, no. So then
Mm,
you know that it's your truth because your body is working with you and signaling, but it gets more refined in the long term when it's like, okay, your body's responding, but that doesn't always mean that it's just your intuition. Your body could be saying no because there's trauma there too.
mhm.
So it's a complex thing. We're not simple organisms, and it takes a lot to get here. But if you stay devoted to the path, I mean, I've been on my journey for about 10, 12 years now, and I've been specifically working on my spiritual aspects and faculties for the last 6 or so. And so it gets better every year. I get stronger in identifying this is a part of me, this is a trauma thing. And it's just like anything else. You spend time with it, you know its subtleties, and it's so subtle. It's so subtle, and so it just, yeah, it takes practice.
Yeah. And one thing you said is that we're not complex organisms, and that's facts right there. Because I remember it was even a couple of years ago when I felt like I was just hitting a lot of resistance, and I was talking with a mentor, and I was like, I don't know, I feel like I'm complex. He's like, everyone's complex. And the more you start unpacking and learning about yourself and understanding yourself, you realize that yes, we are all complex, and that's why, from my perspective, we deserve to spend time with ourselves. And because if coming back to this whole concept of spending time with yourself so that you can understand yourself, because as long as you're hanging out with at least one person or you have any sort of distraction, social media, Netflix, even music, like you're giving some of that of your energy to that, if not all, a
Mhm.
lot of your energy to that. And that is like distracting you from understanding this complex being that takes a lot of understanding, a lot of time to find out those subtleties. And I love that you brought up those tests. Do you call them muscle tests or strength tests? I've heard of both?
Yeah, you can do muscle tests. I call it that, although it's like, I don't, I mean, I guess it's muscle testing for sure. It's called applied kinesiology is what the
Okay.
technical term is. You could also use a pendulum, which people use too, just hold a pendulum. So yeah, it's like muscle testing for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about that recently, and I heard about the one where like it was you'd stand up and you would just ask the question, and if it's a yes, you typically like fall forward. If it's a no, then you fall back. And you can, from what I where I learned that, like you can literally use that for anything, whether you're uh figuring out if you want to buy the castor oil or you want to use this headline on your sales page.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool way to just operate life because then again, you're listening to your body as opposed to just, I don't know.
Other people or whatever. But the thing is, most people don't want to get up while they're writing their sales page at a coffee shop, stand up and go, should I have this, is it in my highest and best to have this headline? So, most people don't want to do what's actually required, but I think that's our purpose is to know ourselves. I don't know that we, experiencing love, like contributing to humanity, that's all fine and dandy, but at the core of what we're doing here on a soul level is getting to know ourselves. And so that to me is the most important thing. And that with where we're going in humanity and evolving and the things that are happening in the world, we have to have that. We have to be able to discern, what's AI and what's not,
Yeah.
what's happening on the media and what's real. And the only thing that we're going to be able to tune into for fact is ourselves, our body, and to be able to listen to that. So for those listening to this podcast right now, like get on this. This is important work that we're doing right now. It is the most important skill that you will have in your entire lifetime. Comes down to every decision that you make, your life partner, your business partners, your, whatever it is, your body speaking to you, and it's asking us to listen now more than ever.
I'm so glad that you emphasize that point because yeah, with the emergence of technology, of AI, of all this stuff that is coming out it's so important to really be tapped into who you are. I would say
Yeah.
I have one final question that I wanted to dig into because you mentioned it earlier about the when you're putting together your vision board and putting your face on Success Magazine and all that, and you're talking about your vision. What's your first? I'd love to hear just your thoughts about vision. It seems like you're more about like at least right now you're like, how do I continue to understand myself? But do you still like see things on where you're going and what does success look like to you and what does your vision look like?
Yeah. So, in the past, I used to have goals that I felt were based on my desire to be significant in the world because ultimately I wanted to be loved, right?
Yep.
A lot of us have that.
All of us.
Now, yeah, now it's like I do have ways in which I want to impact humanity, but it's not from a wound that I'm not enough as I am,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I find this is like the lifelong question of like, what's the balance here between thy will and like between God's will and my will, like
Yeah.
thy will for my will, right? So I think that we have free will, so it's beautiful to flex that, and I think innovation comes from that. But when you think about, was listening to Nassim, I forget his last name, and he's like a quantum physicist, and he was talking about how the greatest innovations and advancements of our time came from individuals who we identify as being genius, but what they were actually doing was opening up their consciousness to receive information. So it's like, is it my vision or is it something that's coming through me? So I'm still in inquiry around that. But right now, what it comes down to mostly is I don't feel there's still the ego part of me, which we all have, which will never die. And I just want to be clear with people about that. Like, there's just let's work with our egos, not try to kill them off. They have functionality. But the visions for my future are more of what I feel I'm being called to do and I'm receiving information to share versus like a wound or a need, right? So um I tap into the field and I ask my soul, I ask God, I ask to show me what is in my highest good to create, what is in my highest good to share. And so right now for me, it's I want to have a spiritual center, like a non-dogmatic church style place where people can come and worship and pray and heal each other in a way that's not attached to any religion. So I feel, but that didn't come from Carissa having the idea. It's come
Mm.
from, I feel like I'm being called to do this. And then I'm like witnessing, I like found this postcard on the, I asked for guidance. I found this postcard on the sidewalk the other day for a spiritual center in the neighboring town that I used to live in Illinois, and I was like, that's weird. And then somebody else brought it up to me. And it's just like, I'm noticing that I'm getting information about what it is that I meant to create. And it feels aligned because I want to do those things too. So I really open up my consciousness to receive information about what is in my highest and best to create in the world. And since it's thy will and it's a form of creator or soul, I know that it is also a part of the essence of what Carissa, me, the ego, little self, would
Mm.
also want to create. And so, there's that balance. There's still the part of me that's like, oh, I want to do this thing. And I let her have her fun. She wants to create. But when it comes to long-term vision stuff, it's ultimately what I feel God, my relationship with source is guiding me to do. And I hold that. But how I operate differently too now is I live really moment to moment. Like I don't actually have the capacity to plan long term. And even when I do, it doesn't work out in the same way. So spirit just keeps telling me, live moment to moment. And that doesn't mean that I don't have content plans sometimes and I don't have, things that are on the books. So we've had this podcast scheduled for a little bit. It got rescheduled a couple times, whatever. We have to function in a 3D world. But our time, our on a quantum level, our timelines and our energy and a path is the energy so accelerated that things are changing so much. So what I wanted even a few months ago is not even what I want now.
Yeah.
We're in a portal of energy right now until about the year 2027, 28.
Mm.
So things are very, very, very accelerated and we're entering into, the age of Aquarius, the golden age. This has been predicted for many, many I said lifetimes, but it's like it's been predicted for thousands and thousands of years. There's prophecy here that's happening right now that we're in. So yeah, so I have visions. They're ultimately what I feel God is asking me to do, and it feels so good to serve and to be devoted in that way. And then I have little things that I like to create here and there, and I just make sure that they're in alignment, but really just staying in the present because that's ultimately when we can hear the guidance, like Einstein in the shower, who like figures out, theories or
Mhm.
gravity and theories of relative, whatever it is. So yeah, I have a little bit of a different take on that than a lot of people, but ultimately that's what really works for me.
Yeah, I think it's the ultimate balance. I was even having a conversation with somebody last night at our event, and she was asking me because our company really help people craft out their vision, and she was asking me that question of like, how do you like, yes, craft the vision, but make sure that you're not just always stuck in future self.
Totally. Yeah. And I would add one thing to that too, that just sparked. It's like people live so much there that they're not grateful for here. Right. So they're like always projected out there that they're missing the moments that are leading them there. And oh shoot, it just escaped me. The vision of the future. And it wasn't gratitude, but I forgot what it was. It's just dang, I forgot.
Well, if it comes
Maybe it
to
was meant to escape me.
there's a quote that I heard that popped up for me when you said that is, don't let your ambition rob your gratitude.
Mm,
And I think that's like just embodying this balance of, yes, know that you want to continue to create the way God wants you to create, but also be grateful. Because I think from my perspective, I'm I'm living a dream that I used to have.
hmm
Like it's so important to realize that because I remember sleeping on a futon in my mom's office and I was just like, I just want my own room.
hmm hmm
I want
Yeah.
my own bathroom, you know? And like even to like move to a beautiful sunny spot that's beautiful weather all year long and like this is the
hmm
dream. I was like when I was driving Uber.
Well, these two, that's I got the nugget too, if I can share.
Yeah, sure.
So two things. Number one, these are also the problems that we used to pray for too.
Yeah.
which is a flip
Yes.
on that perspective, right? Like, wow, I know when I was navigating like stuff with my team, I was like, why? I was like, oh wow, I used to pray for having team. And I used to pray for that. These are the problems we used to pray for. And something going back to the vision too, that's really, I think, supportive for a lot of people is remembering that it's not the vision that you necessarily want, it's how you want to feel, right? So when we project our consciousness into I'm on stage, I'm doing these things, like I think back to my list used to be, I got $1 million cash, I got 4 houses, I got 7 cars, like all of these practical things. And I was like, oh, but that's going to give me the feeling of safety. So when we're envisioning the reality that we want for ourselves, it's beautiful to imagine it because we're creating it, and come back to the feeling of having that now, and what you feel like that's going to give you, and how you can cultivate in your reality here. So safety, peace, love, belonging, these simplified aspects that we just outsource a lot of our power to.
That's so good. Those are two of my favorite questions I ask clients a lot is what do you want and how do you want it to feel?
Huge. That's the main thing, is how you want it to feel, and how you will feel having it, and like how can you anchor that into yourself now, because that's the energy that's going to create it anyway, so you might as well start tapping into that.
Exactly. Well, with all that said, I told you that we had a gift for you at the end, and this aligns perfectly. So your future self, uh, she came to me and she wanted to tell you some things. And I was going to deliver it, but she said she wanted to directly deliver it. So I got a little message from her. Are you cool if I play that for you?
Sure, sure.
All right, give me 1 second.
Hey, Carissa, it's me. It's you, the future you. I'm so excited for you to get here, but I'm equally, if not more, pumped for you to embrace every moment until you do get here. It's cool to see how passionate, resilient, and courageous you are. I'm excited for you to see who you've become and all you've created. Yeah, the optimal health and vitality that had you feeling younger and younger every single day. The wealth you built that gave you the freedom and abundance you had always desired. The loving and committed relationships that filled your heart with so much joy. Oh, and of course, you redefined the new paradigm of success. You were a pioneer to helping the collective rediscover themselves, and none of it would have been possible without you. Carissa, I love you. I love who you are. I love who you've always been, and I love who you're constantly becoming. Now get up and make it a great day.
Oh my God. That made me emotional. That's so good. Oh, I love that. Was that AI? How did you do that? I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, it really sounds like me.
It's getting good. And yeah, that's like what we're so excited about because like so we as I mentioned to you, we help people craft their vision and they started out as vision videos. And we have a lot of different things that we're working on, but the thing that we're excited about with this is like we're able to like create these very quickly because just what you're saying is it's all the feeling. And you even said it right after you listened to it, like that's got me emotional. I mean,
Yeah.
make me feel. And I had a pretty interesting story on how this like essentially all started. It was like 15 years ago, essentially. I played baseball and I would go into my mind, I would visualize myself hitting walk-off home runs off the 7 of the scoreboard. Whatever reason, that was what I wanted. That's what I felt called. And it happened exactly the way I saw it. Like boom, right off the 7.
Ooh.
And I think ever since then I've been on this hunt to figure out how do I recreate that because I felt that before I did it. But I would go into my mind and I would visualize other things and I wouldn't necessarily feel it. So I've been on this journey to figure that out. And so it started out as more of like these in-depth vision videos, and we had the people speak it. And now we have like some other modalities, but now we have this, since AI is getting so advanced, we're able to just like gift these to people and make these like short little ones. So we like to kind of just demonstrate that on these podcasts every once in a while.
Oh my God, that was great. I'm like, can you send that to me?
Yeah,
So
of course.
good.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Oh, thank you for that. That feels very special. Thank
Yeah,
you. It's very sweet.
of course. Well, cool. Man, this has been an incredible conversation, and just I want to thank you for your time. I know it's very valuable and you have a lot of wisdom. And I'm just really grateful for everything that you shared, your energy and your wisdom and your knowledge and everything, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Me too. I knew from the moment we first connected, I'm like, this is going to be a homie, and I really appreciate the way we web in each other's lives and just the resonance here. So thank you for having me and allowing me to contribute to your podcast. I'm looking for many more collaborations moving forward.
Definitely. Cool. Well, any last words, and also where's the best place people to find you? Obviously put all your stuff in the show notes and everything, but is there anything else you want to share with the audience? And then also, there's a question I love asking as well is what's what's your ask? And that can be like if there is anything that you are having challenges with that maybe I can help you with, or anybody listening, or is it just simply like what do you want people to get out of the conversation that we had?
Mm, mhm. You know, I'll answer this in the way that is going to be, resonant with the rest of this is that I held a prayer before we had this conversation that people would receive exactly what they're meant to. And I think that me answering this question in that same way, that everyone's going to get something different from this podcast. Everyone's going to get something from this show. And they might re-listen in a year from now and get something entirely different. And I think even as I'm saying, it's like making me emotional, just like trusting where you're at right now, trusting you're receiving exactly what you're meant to, you're exactly where you need to be. And that kind of faith, that kind of trust, that kind of peace and presence really allows you to expand into where you need to go. You're exactly where you need to be doing what is on your path. And as you anchor into that, you will be led to where you need to go. And so that's my ask, is that people just be really present to life right now. They allow themselves to enjoy this breath at the end of this podcast, this moment between moments, the sunlight that hits them as they walk outside after this show, or the extra snuggle with their pup, and that we find ourselves living in the present. And as we allow ourselves to tune into that, all else becomes possible. We're not striving, we're not obsessing, we're just allowing life to move through us. And that to me is the greatest success that you could have, is just to be, period, just to be. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for having me and for sharing this time and space with me also.
That was beautiful. I received that.
Yeah.
It's always a great reminder. I don't feel like we can ever hear it enough to just be present, be here, be in this moment.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cool. Well, is Instagram best way to connect with you, or
Yeah,
website?
Instagram, my website, which we can send you links for to put in show notes, but it's just my name, Carissa Johnsen. And yeah, those are the best places to find me. And I would love if people shared this. I think that's a ask, is if it resonated with you, share the message. I think there's a lot of information out there nowadays, and sometimes it gets really difficult to sparse out, what should I listen to, who's in integrity, etc. And so if this resonated with you, I would just invite people to go share it on their social media stories or with a family member, or, bookmark it for a later time to re-listen again.
Well, thank you again, Chris. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much.